Captain Zekhari stood on the bridge of the Times, Serenity's dawn times, and watched the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. His forearms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. The ship hummed with the soft sounds of a vessel that had traveled between stars for many years. This was supposed to be a simple mission. Find the planet. Make contact with the people living there. Help them join the big family of space travelers called the Galactic Confederation. Zekhari had done this work for 40 years. Most of the time, it was easy. The new people were either too simple to understand space travel, or they were scared, or they were excited to meet aliens. "Sir, we are now close enough to send the greeting message," said Communications Officer Veltana. Her green skin gleamed under the bridge lights. She had done this many times too. "Send it," Zekhari said. He sat back in his command chair and waited. The greeting was always the same. Numbers that showed they understood math. Simple pictures, basic sounds that meant friendship. It was a message that said, "Hello, we come in peace," in a way that any smart species could understand. The message went out toward the third planet from the star. The blue and green world looked beautiful from space. White clouds moved across its surface like cotton balls. The aliens could see that water covered most of the planet. This was a good sign. Most species that lived on water worlds were peaceful. Zekhari expected to wait. New species always took time to answer. First, they had to understand that the message came from space. Then they had to figure out what it meant. Then they had to decide what to do about it. Usually this took days or even weeks, but not this time. The answer came back in less than 3 minutes. "Sir," Veltana said, and her voice sounded strange. "We have a response." "Already?" Zekhari stood up from his chair. "Show me." The message appeared on the main screen. It started with the same numbers they had sent, but then it kept going. The math got harder and harder. Then came language patterns that were not simple at all. They were complex and beautiful, like poetry made of mathematics. But that was not the strangest part. The strangest part was where the message came from, not from one place on the planet. It came from hundreds of places all at the same time. Cities on the light side of the world. Cities on the dark side. Places in the oceans. Even from objects moving in space around the planet. "Sir," said Science Officer Krell, his scales turning yellow with worry. "This is not normal first contact behavior." Zekhari nodded. In 40 years of making first contact, he had never seen anything like this. One government might speak for a whole planet. But this was different. This was like the entire world had been waiting for their message. The response continued. Now it included detailed information about their ship. How big it was. What kind of weapons it had. How many crew members were on board. Information that should have been impossible for the planet's people to know. Then came the part that made Zekhari's blood run cold. The message was polite. Very polite. It welcomed them to the star system. It expressed interest in peaceful contact. But it also included a firm request. They were asked to stay exactly where they were, while appropriate authorities were consulted. At the end of the message was a timer. It showed 36 hours and counting down. "Veltana," Zekhari said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Can you tell where all these signals are coming from?" She worked at her station for a few minutes. "Sir, the signals are coming from over 2,000 different locations on the planet, and from at least 300 objects in space around the planet." "Objects in space?" "Space stations, sir, and ships. Lots of ships." Krell looked up from his science station. "Sir, I am detecting weapons pointed at us." "From the planet?" "No, sir. From the objects in space. The ships have weapons. The space stations have weapons. Even some of the asteroids have weapons." Zekhari sat down hard in his chair. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. New species were not supposed to have space weapons. They were not supposed to have space stations all around their planet. They were not supposed to detect alien ships before the aliens announced themselves. "Sir," Veltana said, "there is more to the message. Show me." New words appeared on the screen. The planet's people had included something else in their response. Technical information about faster-than-light travel. Energy weapon designs. Shield technology. Things that most species did not discover until they had been traveling in space for hundreds of years. How do they know this? Krell whispered. The timer kept counting down. 35 hours and 58 minutes. Zekhari had been in dangerous situations before, but this felt different. This felt like walking into a trap, except the trap was politely asking him to wait while they decided what to do with him. Sir, said Weapons Officer Thane, should we arm our weapons? Zekhari thought about this. The Times Serenity's Dawn Times had weapons, but they were mainly for protection against space pirates or dangerous animals. Nothing that could fight hundreds of armed ships. No, he said. Keep the weapons offline. If they wanted to hurt us, they would have done it already. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of the timer. Sir, Veltana said. What do we do now? Zekhari looked at the blue planet on the screen. Somewhere down there, people were deciding what to do about his ship. People who had been ready for this moment. People who had been waiting and watching and preparing. We wait, he said, and we try to figure out exactly what kind of species we just said hello to. The timer kept counting down, and Captain Zekhari wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his career, or if he had just discovered something that would change everything the Galactic Confederation thought they knew about First Contact. One thing was certain. The people of this blue world were not like any species he had ever met before. The hours passed slowly on the bridge of the Times Serenity's Dawn asterisk. Captain Zekhari watched the timer count down while his crew tried to understand what they had gotten themselves into. Science Officer Krell had been working without a break since the first message arrived. His scales kept changing color from green to yellow to orange, showing how worried he was getting. Sir, Krell said, looking up from his station, I have been studying the planet's communications. The people down there call themselves humans. They have been sending radio signals into space for over 100 years. That is normal for a developing species, Zekhari said. What else have you found? That is just it, sir. They are not developing anymore. They are already developed. They have cities all over their planet. They have stations in space. They have ships that can travel between planets in their star system. Some of their ships look like they could travel between stars. Communications. Officer Veltana raised one of her long arms. Sir, I have been listening to their radio signals. They know we are here, but they are not panicking. Their governments are talking to each other, but they are calm. Too calm. What do you mean too calm? Zekhari asked. Sir, when most species see alien ships for the first time, they get excited or scared. They argue about what to do. These humans are acting like they have been planning for this day. Zekhari felt a chill run down his spine. Show me their communications. The main screen filled with text and sound from the planet below. Even though the translation software was still learning the human language, some things were clear. The humans had many different countries, but they were all working together now. They were sharing information about the alien ship. They were moving their space weapons into position. They were evacuating some cities but not others. Sir, Veltana said, listen to this. A human voice came through the speakers. The translation software made it sound mechanical, but the meaning was clear. All defense platforms are now in position. Lunar base reports ready. Mars station is moving into support position. All civilian ships have been cleared from the approach vector. We are ready to implement Protocol 7 if negotiations fail. Protocol 7? Zekhari said. They have protocols for meeting aliens? Krell's scales turned bright orange. Sir, I have found more information. The humans have been watching our approach for weeks. They detected us when we were still outside their star system. Impossible. Our stealth systems are the best in the Confederation. That is what I thought too, sir. But look at this. The screen showed a human document. It was filled with technical drawings and numbers. Zekhari recognized some of it. It was a blueprint of their ship. A perfect blueprint showing every room, every weapon, every system. How did they get this? He whispered. I do not know, sir, but there is more. They have blueprints of 17 different Confederation ship types. They know about our weapons. They know about our shields. They know about our faster-than-light drives. The timer showed 28 hours remaining. Weapons Officer Thane looked up from his station. Sir, more ships are moving into position around us. I count 412 vessels now. Are they all military? No, sir. That is the strange part. Most of them look like civilian ships, but they have been modified. They have weapons that should not fit on ships that size. They have armor that makes no sense for trade vessels. Zekhari stood up and walked to the main window. Outside, he could see small points of light moving against the stars. Human ships, hundreds of them, all keeping a careful distance but clearly ready to fight. Sir, Veltana said, another message is coming in. Put it on the main screen. The message was different this time. It included pictures along with the words. The first picture showed the human planet as it was now. Green and blue and beautiful. The second picture showed the same planet, but different. Gray and dead, with no clouds and no green places. The message was simple. The humans were showing them two choices, peace or war, life or death. But the message also included something else. Technical specifications for weapons that the Confederation had never seen before. Shield designs that looked impossible. Ship engines that seemed to break the laws of physics. Krell, Zekhari said, are these weapons real? The science officer worked at his station for several minutes. Sir, according to my analysis, yes. These weapons could destroy our ship in seconds. These shields could stop anything we have. These engines could make their ships faster than anything in the Confederation fleet. But how? They are supposed to be a new species. They should not know how to build such things. Sir, Veltana said, her voice very quiet. I think they have been listening to our communications for a long time. Not just ours. All Confederation ships that have passed near this star system in the past 100 years. Zekhari felt like the floor had disappeared under his feet. You mean they have been spying on us? Yes, sir. And learning from us. And building better versions of our technology. The timer showed 26 hours remaining. Another message arrived. This one included video. It showed human leaders sitting around a table in a room somewhere on the planet. They were talking calmly, looking at papers and computer screens. One of them was pointing at what looked like a star map. The translation software was getting better at understanding human speech. The alien vessel matches the specifications we developed from the Korthak incident 3 years ago. One human was saying. Standard Confederation exploration ship. Crew of approximately 50. Lightly armed. They are probably following first contact protocols. Good, said another human. That gives us more options. Military response is still on standby. But diplomatic contact remains the preferred outcome. What about the rest of their fleet? Asked a third human. Long-range sensors show no other ships within 50 light-years. This appears to be a solo contact mission. Just like we expected. Zekhari's hands were shaking. The humans knew about the Korthak incident. That had been a classified Confederation mission in a star system far from here. How could they possibly know about it? Sir, Krell said. I think I understand what is happening. See, explain. The humans are not a new species, sir. I mean, they are new to space travel, but they are not new to knowing about space travel. They have been watching us for years. Decades, maybe, learning everything they could, preparing for the day when we would come to their world. The timer kept counting down, and Zekhari realized something that made his blood run cold. This was not first contact. This was an examination. The humans were not wondering what the aliens were like. The aliens were being tested to see what they were like, and Zekhari had no idea if they were passing or failing. Captain Zekhari could not sleep. The timer showed 18 hours remaining, and every hour brought new discoveries that made him more uncomfortable. Sir, Science Officer Krell called out. Zekhari hurried to the science station. Krell had been working all night, trying to understand the human star system. What he found was disturbing. Sir, look at this scan of their asteroid belt. The main screen showed the rocky debris that circled between the 4th and 5th planets. At first it looked normal. thousands of asteroids floating in space, just like around most stars. But when Krell highlighted the artificial structures, the screen lit up like a festival display. "Those are not natural formations," Krell said. "The humans have built structures inside, or on at least 3,000 asteroids. Mining operations, sir, but not for valuable metals." "What are they mining?" "Raw materials for weapons and ships, sir. And look at this." The display changed to show the larger asteroids. Some of them had been hollowed out completely. Inside the empty spaces were massive construction facilities. "Shipyards, sir. They are building their fleet inside asteroids, where nobody can see them from the outside." Zachary stared at the screen. "How many ships?" "I cannot get an exact count, sir. But based on the size of the facilities, they could build hundreds of ships every year." "Communications." Officer Veltana looked up from her station. "Sir, I have been analyzing their communications network. It is more advanced than ours." "How is that possible?" "They use quantum entanglement for instant communication across their entire star system. No delays. No interference. Every ship, every station, every military base can talk to every other one at the same time." Zachary felt a headache starting behind his eyes. "What else?" "Sir, they have early warning sensors positioned around their entire star system. Not just near their planet. Everywhere. If a ship comes from any direction, they will see it long before it gets close." Weapons Officer Thane raised his hand. "Sir, I have found something else. The humans have been testing weapons." "What kind of weapons?" "All kinds, sir. I detected energy signatures from tests they conducted in their outer system. Plasma cannons that are twice as powerful as ours. Missile systems that can hit targets from further away than our sensors can see. And sir, they have been testing something else." "What?" "Planet crackers." "Sir." The bridge went completely silent. Planet crackers were weapons that could destroy entire worlds. The Confederation had banned them centuries ago after a war that killed billions of people. "Are you certain?" Zachary asked. "Yes, sir. The energy signature is unmistakable. They tested one on a dead planet in their outer system. The planet is now an asteroid field." Krell's scales had turned completely white. "Sir, there is something else. I have been studying the humans themselves. Their biology, their history, their behavior patterns. And, sir, they are predators." Zachary blinked. "Many species are predators, Krell. That is not unusual." "No, sir. You do not understand. They are not just predators. They are persistence hunters. On their world, they chased their prey until the prey died of exhaustion. They never gave up. They never stopped hunting. So, sir, they evolved to see everything as either family or prey. And right now, sir, we are not family." The timer showed 15 hours remaining. Veltana suddenly straightened up at her station. "Sir, I am detecting a new signal." "From the planet?" "No, sir. From everywhere. All the human ships and stations are receiving the same signal at the same time." "Can you decode it?" "It appears to be orders, sir. Military orders." The main screen filled with human text. Even though the translation was still imperfect, the meaning was clear enough. Condition Red is now in effect. All civilian personnel to secure positions. All military units to combat-ready status. Lunar Command. Prepare for possible defensive action. Mars Base. Ready the big guns. Zachary felt his hearts beating faster. "Big guns?" Krell worked at his station. "Sir, I am detecting massive energy sources on the planet's moon and on the fourth planet. Energy sources big enough to power." He stopped talking, and his scales turned gray. "Power what, Krell?" "Sir, big enough to power weapons that could destroy our entire ship with a single shot." From millions of kilometers away, the bridge crew looked at each other. They were beginning to understand what they had flown into. This was not just a planet with people on it. This was a fortress that had been preparing for war for decades. "Sir," Veltana said, Another message is coming in. This message was different. It came with video of humans working. But they were not soldiers or government officials. They were regular people. Farmers and teachers and shopkeepers. But every one of them was doing something to help prepare for possible war. Children were being moved to safe places. Food was being stored in underground shelters. Factories were switching from making civilian goods to making military supplies. And every human in the video looked calm. Not scared, not excited. Calm and ready, like they had practiced this many times before. "Sir," Krell whispered, "I think I know why they are like this. Tell me." "I have been studying their history, sir. For their entire existence as a species, they have been fighting wars, not just with other species, but with each other. They have been fighting for thousands of years, sir. They never stopped. That should make them weak, not strong." "No, sir. It made them very good at fighting. And then, 50 years ago, something changed. They stopped fighting each other and started preparing to fight someone else." "Who?" "Us, sir. Any aliens who might someday come to their world. They spent 50 years getting ready for this exact moment." The timer showed 12 hours remaining. Zekhari looked around his bridge at his frightened crew. They had come here expecting to meet a simple, peaceful species that would be grateful to join the Confederation. Instead, they had found something that made him think of the old stories his grandmother used to tell. Stories about monsters that looked like people, but were really something much more dangerous. The humans were not monsters, but they were something the Confederation had never encountered before. They were a species that had looked up at the stars and decided that if anyone ever came to take their world away, they would make it cost so much that nobody would ever try again. And now, Zekhari realized, he and his crew were about to find out exactly how well they had succeeded. The timer showed 8 hours remaining when Communications Officer Veltana made a discovery that changed everything. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking. Captain Zekhari looked up from the tactical display he had been studying. For hours, he had been trying to count all the weapons pointed at his ship. He had stopped counting at 2,000. "What did you find?" "Sir, the humans have been planning for this day for much longer than we thought. Not 50 years. 120 years. Show me." The main screen filled with human documents. Most were too complex for the translation software, but some parts were clear enough to understand. Project Looking Glass, established 1947, Veltana read. Purpose: prepare for eventual contact with non-terrestrial intelligence. Funding: classified. Personnel: classified. Authority level: above top secret. Zekhari felt his stomach's twist. They have been planning since 1947? Yes, sir. But that is not the strange part. Look at this. New documents appeared on the screen. These were more recent, but they referenced much older plans. Sir, they have detailed files on every Confederation member species. They know our weapons, our ships, our tactics, our weaknesses. They know things about us that we have never told anyone. Science Officer Krell looked up from his station. Sir, how is that possible? We have only been sending ships near this system for 30 years. I do not know, Krell. But look at this file. The screen showed a document labeled Korthak Military Analysis. It contained detailed information about Korthak weapons, ship designs, and military tactics. Sir, Veltana continued, they have similar files on the Zalathi, the Morphians, the Grendel Collective, and 47 other species. They know about all of them? Yes, sir. And they have developed specific defense plans for each one. The timer showed 7 hours remaining. More documents flowed across the screen. Plans for defending against Zalathi mind attacks. Weapons designed to penetrate Morphian bioarmor. Tactics for fighting the Grendel swarm ships. Sir, Krell said, this is impossible. Most of these species have never been in this part of space. How could the humans know about them? Before anyone could answer, Veltana held up one of her hands. Sir, I am detecting more communication traffic. This is different. Different how? Sir, the messages are not going to government buildings or military bases. They are going to regular humans. Millions of them. Show me. The screen filled with video feeds from all over the human planet. In cities and small towns, in houses and apartment buildings, ordinary humans were receiving messages and acting on them. An old human man opened a hidden panel in his basement and pulled out military-grade weapons. A human woman who looked like a teacher activated some kind of communication device and started talking to someone in another city. Human children, who should have been playing, were calmly helping their parents prepare for war. Sir, Veltana whispered, the entire planet is mobilizing. Not just the military. Everyone. Zekhari watched the videos in growing amazement and fear. This was not how civilized species behaved during first contact. Civilized species had governments and armies that protected the civilians, but the humans were different. Every human was a potential soldier. Every house was a potential fortress. Every civilian was part of the defense plan. Krell, he said. Are you seeing this? Yes, sir. And sir, I have found something else. The humans have been teaching their children about aliens since they were very young. What do you mean? New videos appeared on the screen. Human children in schools, learning about different alien species. Not just learning about them, but learning how to fight them. Sir, look at this. Human children are taught basic tactics for fighting 40 different types of aliens. They learn this in school, sir. Like we learn mathematics. The timer showed 6 hours remaining. Veltana suddenly straightened in her chair. Sir, I am detecting a very high-level communication. This one is encrypted, but I think I can break it. She worked at her station for several minutes. When she succeeded, the message that came through made everyone on the bridge go silent. This is Shadow Command to all network assets. The visitors appear to be following standard Confederation protocols. Threat assessment remains at code yellow. However, all deep cover assets are to remain in position. If negotiations fail, implement Protocol Omega immediately. Shadow Command? Zekhari said. What is that? I do not know, sir. But listen to this part. The message continued. Assets report successful infiltration of Confederation networks continues. Information gathering from the past 20 years remains undetected. The visitors do not know that we have been watching them as long as they have been watching us. Krell's scales went completely white. Sir, they have spies. In the Confederation. They have been spying on us for 20 years. That is impossible. Sir, Veltana said, look at this list. Names appeared on the screen. Human names. But attached to them were detailed records of Confederation activities. Ship movements. Diplomatic meetings. Military exercises. Secret research projects. Sir. They know everything. Every ship that has ever come near this system. Every conversation we have ever had about first contact procedures. Every weapon we have ever tested. The timer showed 5 hours remaining. Zekhari sat down heavily in his command chair. His crew was looking at him, waiting for orders, but he did not know what orders to give. They had come here thinking they were the advanced civilization making contact with primitives. Instead, they had found a species that had been studying them for decades. A species that had spent over a century preparing for this exact moment. A species that had turned their entire world into a weapon, and every citizen into a soldier. Sir, Weapons Officer Thane said quietly. What do we do? Zekhari looked at the timer. 5 hours, until the humans decided what to do with them. We wait, he said. And we hope that everything we have learned about them is wrong. But deep in his hearts, he knew it was not wrong. The humans had not been surprised by first contact because they had been preparing for it their entire history. And now, Zekhari and his crew were about to discover whether the humans saw them as friends or as threats. The timer kept counting down, and for the first time in his 40 years of making first contact, Captain Zekhari was truly afraid. The timer reached 0. Captain Zekhari and his crew sat in complete silence on the bridge of the Times Serenity's Dawn asterisk. For 36 hours, they had watched the countdown, learning more and more about the humans with each passing hour. Now the moment of decision had arrived. Sir, Communications Officer Veltana said, her voice barely a whisper. Incoming transmission. Put it on the main screen. The screen filled with the image of a human sitting in what looked like a comfortable room. She was middle-aged, with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore simple clothes, not a military uniform. Behind her, Zekhari could see books on shelves and pictures of what looked like a human family. Greetings, Captain Zekhari, the human said, and her voice was warm and friendly. My name is Sarah Chen. I represent the people of Earth, and I would like to invite you and your crew to visit our planet. Zekhari blinked all four of his eyes. You know my name? Sarah smiled. We know quite a lot about you, Captain. We know that you have been making first contact with new species for 40 years. We know that you have never used violence unless someone attacked you first. We know that you are a good person who believes in peace. How do you know these things? We have been watching and learning, Captain. Just as you have been watching and learning about us. Would you like to come aboard one of our ships? We have prepared a place where we can meet and talk safely. Zekhari looked around at his crew. Science Officer Krell's scales were slowly changing from white to green. Weapons Officer Thane had relaxed his grip on his controls. Veltana was smiling for the first time in 2 days. What about all the weapons? Zekhari asked. What about the ships surrounding us? Sarah's smile grew wider. Captain, would you invite strangers into your home without being ready to protect your family if those strangers turned out to be dangerous? No, I suppose not. We feel the same way. Our weapons are ready, but we hope we will never need to use them. The choice is yours, Captain. Peace or conflict. We would prefer peace. Zekhari thought about everything he had learned about the humans. Their weapons, their preparations, their ability to turn their entire planet into a fortress. But he also thought about what Sarah had just said. They were not preparing for war because they loved fighting. They were preparing for war because they loved peace. I accept your invitation, he said. The meeting took place on a human space station that had been hidden inside a large asteroid. As Zekhari and a small group from his crew were brought aboard, he was amazed by what he saw. The station was huge, much bigger than it had appeared from outside. There were gardens full of earth plants, workshops where humans were building impossible machines, and living areas where families lived and children played. Sarah Chen met them at the docking port, along with a dozen other humans. Some wore military uniforms, some wore civilian clothes, and some wore scientific equipment. Welcome to Haven Station, Sarah said. We built this place as a neutral ground for exactly this kind of meeting. They sat around a large table in a room that looked out at the stars. Sarah poured a dark liquid into cups and offered them to the aliens. Coffee, she explained. It is a human drink. It helps us think clearly. Zekhari tasted it carefully. It was bitter but not unpleasant. Now, Sarah said, I imagine you have many questions. Yes, Zekhari said. The most important question is this. Are you going to attack the Confederation? Sarah looked surprised. Attack? Captain, why would we attack anyone? We have never even left our star system. But your weapons, your preparations, your spies, Captain, said another human, an older man with a military uniform. Let me ask you a question. If you knew that someday, strangers with powerful weapons might come to your home, what would you do? I would prepare to defend my home. Exactly. That is what we have done. We prepared to defend our home, but we also prepared to welcome peaceful visitors. Sarah leaned forward. Captain, do you know why we have been so successful at preparing for your arrival? No, because we never stopped fighting each other. For thousands of years, humans have been at war with other humans. We learned to make weapons, to build defenses, to plan strategies. But 50 years ago, we realized something important. What? We realized that all of our fighting had made us very good at one thing, protecting what we love. And what we love most is our families, our friends, and our home. The man in the military uniform nodded. We spent decades preparing for war, Captain, not because we wanted to fight, but because we wanted to make sure that anyone who thought about hurting our families would decide it was not worth the cost. Zakhari understood. You made yourselves too dangerous to attack. Yes, Sarah said. But we also made ourselves too valuable to lose. She gestured to the view of space outside the window. Look around you, Captain. We have turned asteroids into gardens. We have built ships that can travel between stars. We have created technologies that could benefit everyone. We want to share, said a human woman wearing scientific equipment. We want to teach other species what we have learned. We want to help make the galaxy a safer, better place for everyone. But, said the military man, we will only do this as equals, not as subjects, not as a conquered people, as partners. Zakhari sipped his coffee and thought about what he had learned. The humans had spent over a century preparing for this moment, but not the way he had thought. They had not been preparing to conquer anyone. They had been preparing to survive, and then to contribute. What do you want from the Confederation? He asked. Sarah smiled. We want to apply for membership, but not as a protected species that needs help, as a contributing member that can help others. What could you contribute? The military man leaned forward. Captain, in your 40 years of making first contact, how many species have you met that were truly ready to defend themselves? Zakhari thought about this. Very few. Most species are peaceful. And what happens when they meet a species that is not peaceful? Zakhari's heart sank. He knew the answer. Many peaceful species had been conquered or destroyed by aggressive ones. The Confederation tried to protect everyone, but they could not be everywhere at once. We want to be the Confederation's Department of Planetary Defense, Sarah said. We want to teach other species how to protect themselves, how to be too strong to attack and too valuable to lose. Zakhari looked around the table at the human faces. They were serious but not threatening, determined but not aggressive. You would help other species become like you? Not exactly like us, Sarah said. Every species is different, but we would help them become strong enough that nobody would ever think about hurting them. The meeting lasted for many hours. The humans showed them technologies that could revolutionize space travel, medicine, and communication. They shared plans for helping develop peaceful species become strong enough to defend themselves. Most importantly, they demonstrated something that Zakhari had never seen before. They showed him a species that had achieved peace not by giving up the ability to fight, but by becoming so good at fighting that nobody wanted to test them. When it was time to leave, Sarah walked with Zakhari back to the docking port. Captain, she said, there is one more thing you should know. What? Everything we have shown you. Everything we have built. Everything we have prepared. We did it all because we love our families. We love our children. We love our world. And now, if the Confederation accepts us, we will do the same thing to protect the families and children and worlds of every member species. Zakhari looked back at the space station, at the humans working and playing and living together. Sarah, he said, I think the Confederation is going to learn something very important from your people. What is that? That the best way to keep the peace is to be very, very good at war. As the Times, Serenity's Dawn Times, prepared to leave the Sol system, Zakhari began writing his report to Confederation Command. It would be a very interesting report. The humans, he wrote, were ready to join the galaxy. Not as students, but as teachers. They would teach everyone how to be too dangerous to threaten and too valuable to lose. And for the first time in his 40 years of making first contact, Zakhari was excited about what would happen next.